Okay. Think I got it here? I think. I ran into some technical difficulties. That was annoying. All right. Well, it looks like it's live. I'm just going to roll with this. If nobody sees it, that's fine. Hopefully, you guys will figure it out. But anyway, all right. So, if you haven't noticed, so I announced it in my announcements channel. I just decided to switch all of this over to YouTube, and then of course the second I went live, I got like an error right away, and it bombed everything out, and so I had to restart everything. So it looks like it's working now, and so yeah, I'm just going to roll with it. All right, so. Man, we've had a crazy last few days. So first thing I wanted to do, I wanted to start on the weekly and just look at this because I noticed, you know, on these 3 weekly pushes here, granted, this one has gone up quite a bit higher. We've got 3 bearish divergence indicators on the weekly. Granted, this one is really the only one I'm kind of taking seriously. This was a big 5 regular divergence. This earlier one was just a 2 of a hidden divergence. And right now we've just got a 1. This is subject to change because it's just barely Monday and we're, you know, everything is crazy right now. So this could change. This could turn into more, or it could go away completely, especially if it kicks up and sets a new yearly high. So right now I've got an alert set. This is kind of a big number right here. This, the 31,862, this is the yearly high. A lot of people, myself included, did not expect that we would set, a new yearly high again this year. We kind of were thinking that it was back in July. So, you know, now look where we're at. But I do feel like, this is a huge run up. Like we've had this big run up here, like we had this big run up here. And typically when you get these big runs up here, you get, you know, retraces. It's way overextended on a lot of levels. And that's what I want to dig into right now is just what is happening on these lower timeframes, because I'm seeing all kinds of stuff indicating that it's just running out of steam, and it's, you know, divergences popping up left and right across the board on a bunch of different charts. But that's not to say that, like, you know, it couldn't still keep going. My argument there, though, is what is going to sustain that? Like, where is that going to come from? Where's that money going to come from? We're not seeing a lot of new entrants into the space. We're not seeing, you know, if we look at things like social media metrics and indicators, none of that is increasing. In fact, it's all really declining even. So, I don't know where the money is going to come from to, one, push it up into this next range. Like if we kind of zoom out here and look at this in terms of a range, it would basically be, you know, between sort of 32 and 35. I have this, I think, set from a monthly, this line here, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it kind of goes to this monthly body here. So, this is, you know, a pretty big resistance level here, I think, once it gets up into here. But again, what's going to even get us there in the first place? Barring an ETF, I feel like there's not like, it's not like, you know, this big phase of the cycle, you know, post halving, when you've got lots of money coming in, lots of hype surrounding it, and you get these just big, massive retail mania kind of blow off type scenarios. It's way too early for that. We don't have any of that going on right now. There's no retail mania like whatsoever. So I just don't know. I mean, yeah. So let's break it down on the daily. First of all, again, we have a peak here with a 5 that faded. We have a peak here with a 4 that faded. Last night there was a 5 here also at one point, before it kind of blew up back through this level here. And so now it's just got a 1. We're kind of waiting for this to resolve. But if we look at a couple of things, we look at the RSI. The RSI is way overbought. You know, it's sitting at, it's pushing 80 right now. This DS indicator is kind of basically getting ready to peak and roll over. What else do we got? We've got, if we look at DMARC, we've got a 9 sequential popping up, meaning, it's likely maxed out and needs to reset. Now, kind of what I want to stress here is, sure, it could keep going. Sure, we could get that run up into the next range. But the point is, right now it's overextended, and we're going to look at a bunch of other charts here in a second too. Everything I'm seeing is overextended. When stuff does this, it often does, it levels out. Okay, let's look at a few things here. First of all, when we have these big runs up like this, we need to wait for these moving averages to catch up to it. Either the moving average needs to catch up to it, or it's either going to correct back down to it, or it's going to go sideways and wait for the moving average to catch up to it like this, like it did here, or like it did here, where it bottoms out and then it just goes sideways, waits for these moving average, basically coming back to this red line, this red moving average, which is essentially the 20-day moving average, and coming back here is, effectively a mean reversion. It's way overextended. We're like 3 standard deviations extended right now, and just no, this stuff doesn't work this way. Not at this point in the cycle. Stuff does this, like I said, back, post having, retail mania. That's when we see the stuff where it just kind of keeps going and going and going and doesn't stop and doesn't look back, and we get these RSIs that sort of stay, like, let's go back and look here. You'll get these RSIs, like, let me just zoom in on the RSIs. You'll get it where it just stays above it for literally months straight, in times like that. I mean, yeah, it dips, but it's like mostly way overextended, pushing up into the high 80s even. Oops. But it's just not that time right now. What do we got? What does it look like right now? So we had one big pump back at the beginning of the year. We had a big basically the big surge coming out of the end of the bear market. We got this big pump RSI. It stayed elevated for a little while, and then really it hasn't done that again since then. This year, it peaked out a couple times, but you can see it's way overextended to the upside. It was way overbought, needs to correct. So that doesn't mean it can't still go higher, but I just think it needs to correct first. I feel like in the short term, in like the rest of this week, next week kind of thing, it needs to come back down at least to the middle of this range. It needs to kind of come back down, figure out what it's going to do in terms of, how it relates to this bull market support band. Is just kind of a fake out. Like if we look at this on the weekly level again briefly, yeah, we've got a couple of big weeks now way back up above the bull market support band, but is that going to result, is it just going to be a fake? Like if we go back to, I know I'm going all over the place with this chart here right now, but like if we go back to here, I keep coming back to this spot, back almost the exact same time in the last cycle. If you look at this big green candle right here, where granted, this situation is different. And this situation is different because one, it was way more overextended to begin with. It was way above this bull market support band, whereas right now it was basically more just flat, which I'll get back to in a second. But we did break down, kind of very similar time frame, the breakdown we had. And then again, we did come back up and poke back above it. And if you look, what is that? October 21st. How funny is that? So it's today's October 23rd. So almost exactly to the day, compared to last cycle. We broke back up above it, but then it eventually came back down and set a new lower low. So if we go to now, yes, it's not apples to oranges. Obviously, yes, what happened back then doesn't mean it's going to happen now. But my point is, this is sort of, common pre-halving year activity, price action, and also just the precedent that it could come back down lower. Now, again, here, let me get rid of these drawings for a sec. Again, it wasn't nearly as overextended this time around as it was this time around. So it's not the same thing. It didn't cross down as far below Like here, this was like ultimately from this point to this point, it was roughly a 50% correction. And at this point here, we've only had about a 20 some percent correction, if I'm not mistaken. Actually, I have it right here. 21.72 was the biggest from the peak to the trough right now of this correction, which would be, I know I've touched on this in previous episodes. If this proves to just be the end of it here, this would be the shortest correction in the history of Bitcoin in terms of breakdowns from the 20-week moving average. So that's interesting. But my point being, we're same month or same week exactly to the T right now, pumping up over here. And I don't know, do we get another drop lower? So let's go back to here and look at this a little bit more closely. I think at the very least, it would be healthy to come back to the middle of this range. And honestly, it would be healthy to come back to this middle of this range and then bounce from here and just kind of stay in the middle of this range. I think there's a few things that are driving this right now that are holding it up. Mainly, like I touched on Thursday of last week, it's just the ETF. Everybody's freaked out. They don't want to miss the ETF now, so they're buying and they're holding on. Although this doesn't explain, that explains Bitcoin anyway, but if you look, there's a ton of other alts that have been just blowing up over the weekend, which I'll get to in a second. But there were crazy alt gains where a bunch of these were up double digits on both Saturday and Sunday. And that just like, again, that's so atypical for this time of the cycle too. That's just not what happens right now. And that doesn't explain, that has nothing to do with the ETFs, because the ETFs have nothing to do with these. Some of these are pretty micro cap alts that I was looking at too. And the ETF has nothing to do with that. So I don't know if there's just kind of weird market shenanigans going on. I don't know if it's just sort of the hot ball of money, the crypto hot ball of money, because again, not much of this money is coming in from the outside. Like if we look at total market cap, yes, it's up, but total market cap peaked back in April and it's been kind of in a downtrend really until last week. Yes, we're kind of coming up here in terms of, Bitcoin price, it's pushing new yearly highs. Actually, let me move that to here. It's pushing new yearly highs, but total market cap isn't even close. It's still got a ways to go. Again, it peaked in April. It kind of tried to push it again in July, but it's way off. So it's not like there's tons of new money coming into the space right now that is causing this. So this is just sort of money flowing around and just none of this makes sense, basically. And it's way overbought and it's way overextended. And it needs to kind of settle down to kind of guess and not guess, but to just kind of assess where things are at and what the next step is. Let's kind of poke at some of these alts. It is interesting to see ETH against Bitcoin still doesn't look great. It's holding support at the bottom of this range, but and it bounced a little bit, but ETH kind of, even in the whole past week, it's just kind of continued to lag. But there are other alts, which is super interesting to me, that have done the complete opposite, that have just like gone nuts. Solana's one of them. Solana's actually been very constructive and looks very good. Like if we look at this, so I know I've been touching on this weekly range, and this is good. I mean, it closed above this range. It pushed up into the middle of this range, which it's been needing to do because it's basically been bouncing off of it for a while now, going back to July, but then even further back here. I mean, yeah, it pushed over and then it's basically been resistance since March, and it closed a solid week above it. And well, now it's kind of settling down again, but this is constructive. And I think that this is a good sign. And if we look at it on the dollar pair too, it actually looks even better, though it's more important what it's doing against Bitcoin. But just in terms of like a good looking chart, it does look better on the dollar chart here. So the dollar chart's based on this range here that I've got going back. It pushed back up into the range finally and is cruising towards the middle of the range. And it's still in the green, and it doesn't have a big ugly divergence flag like it did against Bitcoin. But if we look at it on the daily, it is running out of steam. And it's also, if we look at its RSI, it's again way overbought too. And just kind of needs to settle down. Now, if I was looking at this, I would guess that I'd like to see it come back down basically to the bottom of this channel and sort of hold support here and bounce here. I think that would be a good, healthy move. I don't think it's going to come back down. I mean, unless we get some kind of nuke from Bitcoin, I don't think we're going to come back down to these levels here. I think that's pretty much off the table at this point. But, coming back down into this channel and holding support here, I think would be constructive. I probably would be looking to kind of load up on a fair bit of Solana at that point, a decent allocation of it. Because I think, it's stupid to buy here. It's stupid to buy on any of these charts right now. If you missed the boat, basically, if you didn't get in at the beginning of this, don't buy now. Now is not the time to buy. Either wait for it to blow past here and, close at probably somewhere in the 32s, or wait for it to at least come back down to the middle of this range. Buying here, you're likely just going to get hosed because, again, you don't buy when it's at the top of the range, when it's pushing major monthly resistance levels, and you don't sell at the bottom here, sort of like I did. Haha. But anyway, yeah, just don't buy right now on any of this stuff. As tempting as it is, this is when FOMO kills everybody. Is like, oh my God, it's going to run up forever. It's never going to stop. I got to buy, if it was like, this phase of the cycle here, towards the latter end of the halving year, then yeah, there is a chance that it just takes off, but like, not right now. So just chill. I keep telling myself the same thing because I've wanted to FOMO into this, since going on Thursday or Friday, and all through the weekend. I'm like, should I buy? Of course not. It's like you're part of your mind tells you want to buy, and then the other part's like, no, don't do that. That's stupid. That goes against everything. You've done this before. You've lost money. It's a bad idea. Don't do it. So I haven't. But yeah, going back to Solana, I'm going to look for it to come back down to the bottom of this range here. Let's just kind of briefly go through a few of these other ones that I've got on my watch list. I'm not sure what to do with Tau. Honestly, I plan to get an allocation of it at some point, but I feel like it's too early. It's not really constructive, particularly on the Bitcoin chart. Yes, it bounced off the support level, which it needed to do, and that was key. And I'm very glad that it did, but it's still below the bull market support band, not to mention the 21 EMA has gone below the 20. And so it's sort of trending down. You can't really tell because it just looks like a balloon or a cloud right here, just based on, because it doesn't have enough price history yet to look like an actual band, but it is a band and it's trending to the downside. And so I really need to see it kind of close above this against Bitcoin, to sort of get constructive about this chart. I am bullish on this project long term. I think it will do well. I think, blockchain AI is a huge sector, but I think it's too early to buy here yet, because this could keep going down. And so I want to see it look a little bit better against Bitcoin. The 0x0, I have a little tiny bag of this one, kind of a home run swing type bag of this one. I may look to allocate more. I probably will look to allocate more, but I think also, really what I'm looking for here, yeah, it's kind of come back down to the daily. It's sort of mean reverted back to the daily, the 20-day moving average. It'd be nice if it came back down to the bull market support band. I think that would be an even better time to buy again against Bitcoin. But this one might not. So it's like, I'm going to hope it comes back down to here. But if it starts pushing it back above here, basically this was a new all-time high right here, just this last week. So if it starts pushing new all-time highs again, in fact, let me adjust this alert and reset it, because if it pushes new all-time highs again, I may just have to FOMO into this one a little bit more. Again, I'm not going to go huge. This isn't like a primary bag, but I want to increase my allocation a little bit on this one. So I'm going to hope it comes back down to here, but if it pushes a new all-time high, it's going to grab my attention. This injective is really intriguing to me because it's just every day, like it was going nuts over the weekend, pushing, double-digit gains. Saturday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, today even. And it's like, it just needs to calm down. I don't want to jump into it yet, but again, it's right at the breakout level. Like if you go back to this, all the way back to here, this is against Bitcoin. This is kind of the big breakout level for it. And this definitely has my attention. So if this continues to push up, I'm going to have to get into it. And again, really, I'm looking at it on the Bitcoin chart here. Granted, both the dollar value of both Bitcoin and injective could go down, but if it starts pushing new higher highs against Bitcoin, I just feel like it's just got so much relative strength right now. And on the year, it's just showed nothing but strength. I mean, it's never even slowed down hardly, except for this little bit right here. And it's just, again, pushing new highs already. In fact, yeah, it set a new yearly high this week, today. Well, today. So it's got this resistance, but that's where we're at with this one. It looks really good. I'm going to get a decent allocation of this too, because it's a bigger market cap, and it just looks so strong. Some of these are smaller ones, but also just had mega weekends. And this one actually looks kind of the most reasonable. It's funny. It didn't quite go off the rails like this next one, or no, not Rio. This one here over the weekend, this 0x0.ai. So on, what was it? These are daily prices here. So there's just no history on this. I mean, it's a brand new project. So of course it's going to be crazy. The market cap is like nothing. So it's going to move like all over the place. But I mean, look at this. Thursday, 21% gain. Friday, 41% gain. Then Saturday, it corrected 16%, but Sunday, another 41% gain. And then today it's down 13%. But just like, these are mega moves. And like, where is this all coming from right now? This isn't the ETF. But again, going back to my point being, a lot of this stuff needs to just calm down and take a deep breath and reset. And then I think it'll be time to buy. But I don't think that reset's going to be very big. And so, I'm like, in a perfect world for me, it just blows back down through this middle and doesn't even slow down, kind of like it did here, or even here, it moved pretty quickly. Yes, it bounced here. And in this scenario, I probably would have bought right around here. And even though it came back down lower, and that would have been okay. But like in this scenario, I would love it if it did something like this and just blew through, because any hesitation here at the middle of this range, like if it does anything like this business here, or if it comes up, kind of the opposite of this and just sort of pokes at it for 3 or 4 or 5 days, I'm going all in, at that point. I'm not going to expect it to come back down to the bottom of this range, even though it very well could. I mean, we could, anything's possible. We could get 20K again, but I just think with the strength of the ETF narrative, and everybody just being so freaked out that, the approval could come any day now. I saw a tweet go out today, saying that BlackRock basically has begun to seed their ETF fund. That just meaning that doesn't mean they're buying a bunch. It doesn't necessarily mean an approval is imminent. It still could mean January, but they have officially stated that they are going to be seeding the initial base of their ETF this month in October, and that actually could very well be what drove a fair bit of this price action right here. So that doesn't mean they're going to go buy $1 trillion worth of Bitcoin. It's usually not very much. It's actually often very little, just enough to kind of have something there so that when it goes live, whenever it does, there's actual product to back up the ETF buys, and then they'll sort of obviously buy it accordingly as demand dictates. But they have bought some. It didn't say what days in October. It just said October, so that could have been some of this. It could still be more to come. We don't know, but I think that's interesting. So it also obviously means that they're very much expecting to get an approval whenever it does happen, whether it's this week or the middle of January. So I get why people don't want to sell, but at the same time, something's got to give here. It can't just keep doing this. It can't just keep punching up. And again, there's not enough. Like everybody, I feel like everybody who's in crypto already knows about the ETF, and probably is, most people have already bought and are just sitting here waiting. And so there's not, who else is going to come in and be buying all this? The people that are waiting for the ETF outside of crypto, they're probably just waiting for the ETF. So they're not going to be buying right now. They're going to wait until the ETF, and then they're going to buy the ETF. And also, again, to repeat, that has nothing to do with any of these other altcoins that have also been going nuts, over the weekend. So I don't know what's driving this boat. This just is none of this. Injective up 11% today. That's crazy. I wanted to kind of look at dominance a little bit, not this chart, this chart. This is interesting to me. It's funny. Although it has rolled over a bit. On Friday, it was a little flatter, but it has gone down somewhat over the weekend, which is interesting to me. Because clearly, like if you look at a lot of majors, like a lot of the major alt projects, like your big market caps, like Litecoin and Polkadot and Cardano and sort of these bigger, older, big market cap alts, they all look terrible. But a lot of these other ones, actually, there's definitely gems to be had, but not enough to kind of raise the overall market cap. Actually, if I look at, is this total? No, this is others. Let's look at total 3 real quick. That'll at least include some of those majors and kind of get a sense of what that looks like. Total 3 is actually up, which doesn't surprise me. It's actually looks pretty good. Funny because ETH is terrible. ETH is probably dragging this down as much as anything, but it's back up above the bull market support band, and closed above it and has kind of come back down to touch it a little bit. But I don't know. I feel like, I kind of looked at this a while back, and you got to remember alts. July 2019. Well, that was even before this part of the cycle now. But, alts kind of took off, and yeah, they had a bit of a nuke here when Bitcoin ran up at the end of 2020 after the post-halving, when it had its big post-halving rally. But alts, outside of this little sort of stretch, I mean, yeah, it was kind of a big stretch, but if you draw the trend from here to here, it was just, it didn't look back. And so alts can go. And maybe this here, for all we know, we can look back on, was this June, August? Okay. Maybe we look back and this was the bottom for alts. It's possible. You can still have this big mega correction where alts look like the worst investment in the world for like a couple of months as Bitcoin was going nuts. But, in the end, you did way better if you look at it from here to here, and ignore this, than you did with Bitcoin. So I don't know. I'm going to be, obviously paying attention to this. If this starts poking up from here and pushing a bit of a higher high, particularly if it gets above this level here, I'm really going to be watching out for that. And in fact, let's go back here. Yeah. All right. Let's set an alert here. So if we poke this higher high, I think that's going to be pretty noteworthy. That's basically going to mean, alts are setting new highs, alts are setting new yearly highs, and alts could be running. So I think that's going to be an important level to watch. Basically, if it comes up here and eclipses this level here. What else? There's kind of some interesting macro stuff going on. I'm not going to get too deep into that right now. I think the Dixie, well, it's interesting. Earlier, I was like, I bet the Dixie's cooked. It's rolling over. I mean, yeah, we did have the 10-day cross below the 20, and price kind of roll back over and sort of double test this, close back below this previous high from here, like it did basically a week ago. But did it actually set a lower low here? Let's see, low 105. It technically did not set a lower low from here, and it's bounced up a little bit. So that's kind of interesting. It'll be just kind of something to pay attention to. I'm not expecting it to bounce higher and get back up over this. But that's just kind of an interesting observation. Stocks have had kind of an up and down day. They started low, they've gone up, now they're kind of back down again. It's basically just up and macro wise, it's a bit of an up and down day. I kind of want to look at this for a minute. Anyway, let's just focus on crypto for now. So that's kind of where I'm at with crypto. I do think that, like I've said, whether it continues to go up or not, I don't necessarily have a strong conviction on. It could, if it whether it does or not, though, it needs to kind of cool off. It needs to cool off, take a breath, kind of reset, kind of start closing back inside these Bollinger Bands, get back, maybe even mean revert, maybe whether it waits for the moving average to catch up to it or if it comes back down to it. Obviously, like I said, I'd love for it to come back down to the middle of this range. But we'll just see. I think I was looking at it too. I've really actually been watching Bitcoin on the 4-hour kind of over the last few days, which I don't always do. But when it's doing crazy stuff like this, I think it's worth paying attention to. Because again, as we get up into these ranges, we start seeing these bigger, higher number of divergences. Like once it starts coming down and we're in this kind of a trend, you see 1s and 2s and 3s. But once you get up into here, you start seeing 4s and 5s and 6s. And, we had a 6 here. We had a bunch of 4s and 5s here. We've got a 5 here. We're pushing a 5 here. We've also got a sell signal. I don't know if you can really see it, but it's kind of hiding behind there. But like this, the 4-hour is also just saying it's way overextended, particularly like if you look at the RSI on the 4-hour. Oops. Obviously, it's holding here a bunch, and all of this is just saying kind of stop, take a breath, reset, and figure out what's what. So I'm not even going to try to predict where it goes. I'm just going to say that it's overextended and it needs to cool off and come back down to here, and we'll go from there. So that's where we're at. We'll kind of revisit things on Thursday's episode, and hopefully I'm right, but we'll see. So thanks for watching, and I will catch everybody on Thursday. All right.